How's it going, guys? Miguel here with CFS Recovery. This video is going to be talking about a very important concept of how it's not so much the symptoms and the activity levels that causes you to get better or worse. It's more so your reaction and your response to the symptoms. So I get this question a lot. How do I know when the activity is too much? How do I know when to keep going? How do I know when to pull back? And I've answered this in a few other videos, but this video specifically, I want to kind of break down the mechanism of what's kind of happening in your body and what are the steps that lead to you either getting better or you getting worse. And if we really simplify it, if we boil it down to a few basic steps, it's actually very simple. So I'm just going to break it down quickly on the board here. We have the whiteboard today, so we're going to get into the nitty-gritty details. So number one, we have activity, or that also stands for stimulus, because everything is really just stimulus on the nervous system. So that's what we're looking at right now. This could be anything from doing laundry to trying to go on walks to going to social events to watching TV to getting up to go to the washroom, right? All of that is stimulus on the body. So we're just going to call it that. So the stimulus typically leads to number two, which is symptoms, right? And so the symptoms, they can be very intense. Sometimes they can be not that intense, right? So symptoms can be anywhere from more fatigue, it can be more pain, it can be buzzing in the body, and it can be a host of other things, right? That could flare up a ton of different stuff. Now, here's the most important part, right? Because regardless of the activity or stimulus, regardless of the symptoms, it's very important that you understand what happens next. And this is the crucial part. This is where most people screw up in recovery. After this, after step number two, it can either go here, where you actually make improvement and you make some progress, you start seeing results, you start gaining traction in your journey, or it goes down this way. And now, if we go up here, if we respond correctly, all those symptoms, they turn basically into an adjustment period, right? So they turn into an adjustment period. If it goes down here and we respond poorly, which means we panic, we freak out, we get really scared, we get worried, that's what leads to crashes. And I rarely like to use the word crash, especially in Recovery Jumpstart. Actually, everybody I talk to, I don't like to use the word crash because that brings with it a very negative connotation. It brings with it, the idea that you're going backwards, that you're starting at square one. It's just, there's nothing positive about a crash. Whereas an adjustment period, even just labeling your symptoms something different, it's way healthier for the mind than assuming it's a crash. So adjustment period, this is what we want up here. We want the adjustment period. We don't want the crash. Crash is when you panic, you have tons and tons of fear. Now you're gonna have some fear also in the adjustment period, but it's not gonna be paralyzing. Over here in the crash is gonna be the panic, the fear, the worry, but it becomes paralyzing. So it's really important you understand that. It's paralyzing. Right? So things just kind of spiral out of control. Here is where you're on the downward spiral, right? It gets worse and worse and worse. Starts from symptoms, then it gets worse and worse and worse. Typically, these are physical symptoms that lead to all of this. So the physical symptoms and the sensations, all the weird stuff going on, it can go into a downward spiral, and that's when you have symptoms, then you have more worry and fear and the negative emotions, and that leads to more symptoms, then more emotions, more symptoms, more emotions, and it just snowballs out of control. We do not want that. Now, on the other hand, you can go on the upward spiral. This is where you view these symptoms in a different light. Your symptoms are essentially your nervous system trying to adapt to the stimulus, right? So the sensations you feel, they're not necessarily negative. Your body's just doing what the body's trained to do. Your nervous system is responding to the stress that's placed on it. It's trying to adapt. And if we are in paralyzing panic, fear, and worry, it can't adapt. It just snowballs out of control, as you can see. Whereas in adjustment period, we get on that upward spiral. We're able to just have a basic adjustment period, and we actually come out of it a lot stronger. Now, when you're also able to keep your emotions and your mindset cool, calm, collected, you're also able to have moments of a little bit of relaxation. You're going to be able to sleep a bit better. And sleep is so important, because without sleep, you're not going to be able to recover and surpass where you were before the adjustment period. If you're not getting the rest you need and your body's in that wired state, then we can't get to that next level. You're just going to kind of go back to where you started, or you won't really see any improvement, and that's where you get stuck in that circle. So sleep is a huge one, and I'm going to make another video going into more depth about sleep. But for this, right, it all starts with the activity and the stimulus. Then it leads to symptoms, and from there, two things can happen. If you can handle the symptoms properly, that's an adjustment period. If you can't handle them and you panic and you freak out and you worry and you get into this questioning your recovery, and then you go down the deep rabbit hole, you get into paralyzing panic, fear, and worry, right? And I want to make it very clear that even when you're in an adjustment period, you still have the panic, the fear, and the worry. You know, there's still a little bit of that, and that's just natural, but it's not paralyzing because you're limiting it, you're controlling it, you're not feeding yourself the stories. So if we think about the physical symptoms, right, think about it as if it's a bonfire, right? Let's draw a flame here. Not the best flame. But if we look at physical symptoms or sensations and things like that, it's kind of like a bonfire, or anything during this period. Think of it like a bonfire. Two options, like I said. If we go into the crash route, that's kind of like pouring gasoline and fuel on the fire, on the bonfire. So this thing is going to grow massive. And so instead of pouring actual gasoline or petrol, us thinking all this negative stuff and feeling the negative emotions and our body going into fight or flight, that's essentially pouring petrol, gasoline on this fire. And when we get into something like an anxiety attack or a meltdown, this fire is getting exponentially bigger. Whereas if we handled it properly, we kind of sit back and we just say, okay, these are symptoms. This is the nervous system acting up. Then the fire just dies out, right? Doesn't mean it goes away right away. It's going to burn itself out. Just like the nervous system, it's going to get wired. It's going to get overly excited and put you in a bit of survival mode. But if we handle it properly, then this fire eventually kind of extinguishes itself, kind of like a fire in the wilderness or the forest. I'm sure you've seen a lot of videos of that or experienced it yourself. A flame will eventually burn out unless you keep adding fuel to it. The mental and emotional things happening internally, that is fuel to the fire, which is all the symptoms. So I just wanted to break it down. This is a very simple concept. I'm actually surprised I didn't break this down sooner on this channel. I've said all of this in many different ways. I think this just kind of paints a better picture of what happens, of how there's two outcomes when you have these physical symptoms. And in order to make progress, you need to stay cool, calm, and collected. That's the biggest thing. Obviously, that's a lot easier said than done. It takes time, it takes practice, it takes repetition. It doesn't happen overnight. Chances are in the beginning, because you don't even know what the heck is going on, you're gonna be in this state over here. And it makes sense. If you don't know what's going on, you're gonna think you have a new disease or illness every week, sometimes every few days. Like, I was fully convinced, you know, I saw a mole on my arm one day and I thought I had skin cancer. I thought I had adrenal fatigue. I thought I had Lyme's disease. I was thinking of all the times I went camping. I was really going back in the last 15 years. And I was like, did I get a bite? Was that a mosquito bite? How many mosquito bites did I get? What are the odds of that being a tick? So I really dove deep into each one of these. I thought it was mold poisoning, toxicity, early onset of Parkinson's because my body was always buzzing. So your mind starts to run crazy. But if you get a bunch of tests done from doctors and the tests come back negative, they can't really find anything to explain what's going on and give you a definite answer, then rest assured it's probably a hypersensitive nervous system issue. And once you narrow it down to that, and once you can confidently say, or at least take all the data you've collected and cross everything else off the list, you can confidently say that this is probably a hypersensitive nervous system issue, which is essentially CFS. So there will be a lot less panic, a lot less fear, a lot less worry, a lot less kind of curiosity of what it could potentially be, right? So one of the big things we do in Recovery Jumpstart is I really try to teach people to get all of their symptoms. If it hasn't been proven to be the cause of all of this and there's doesn't seem to be a solution, take all of these different symptoms, put it under this one umbrella of a hypersensitive nervous system, or I'll just call it CFS. But everything is under that umbrella. Instead of us going and attacking each symptom one by one, we're dealing with this whole thing. And once we deal with this whole thing and get rid of this problem, we pretty much fix all the symptoms within it. So once you understand a lot of this stuff, the science of how this works, then it's a lot easier to kind of keep your cool, stay calm, and stay collected throughout all of this. But it's very crucial that you understand it. It's not the activity that's bad. It's not the stimulus that's bad. It's not that you're going on your phone or looking at a TV or all of those things. It's not the symptoms that are bad. Symptoms are actually necessary in order for you to get to the next level in recovery. You won't be able to get to that next level without having adjustment period. It's just impossible. It's like someone trying to gain 10 pounds of muscle without ever feeling sore. Well, then there's no way for your body to respond to stimulus and force the body to grow muscle. Same thing here. We need to retrain our nervous system, or else we're just going to stay stuck. So we cannot fear the symptoms, but what we have to do is control our response to them. So we actually have to bring about some activity, bring about some stimulus, handle the symptoms properly, and in doing this, we just get better and better and better and better. And you can see how this is a cycle. So once you go through the adjustment period, you feel a bit better, you come back here, you do activity or do a stimulus, you feel the symptoms, you go in that adjustment period. So this is what we call a progress cycle. Recovery consists of dozens and dozens and dozens of progress cycles that can last anywhere from a few hours, once you're really good, to a couple weeks. And it can feel very similar to a crash. That's where most people get tripped up. So if you wanted to learn more about this, progress cycles, how to expand and do all the right stuff, like looking at it right now, I'm sure it looks quite simple, but executing it is much harder, especially when emotions are running high, when your symptoms are going crazy. It's a lot easier said than done. And I know because I've been there. At my worst, I couldn't even sit up out of bed. Like when I tried sitting up, the room would spin and I'd feel nauseous, chronic pain, lots of headaches, migraines, things like that. But it's because I was constantly in that panic, fear, and worry mode because I didn't know what the heck was going on. Once I learned all of that stuff and once I understood how this works, I didn't really have negative associations with the physical symptoms. It got to a point where I saw this as a positive thing because I knew in order to get up here, I first had to go through here, right? Most people just focus on doing different activities, trying to avoid symptoms at all costs, but this is only step one of it. We have to bring about the symptoms in order to retrain them, or else there's no way through. I hope that makes sense. So if you enjoyed this video, if you got some value out of this, I think this is a really good video that breaks it down, then make sure to hit the like button, hit subscribe if you haven't already. I put out tons of videos like this to really break it down and simplify a lot of what is going on. Make sure you comment down below if this made sense or if you had any questions about this, and if you did want some extra help going through this process, because this can be very tricky going through on your own. If you wanted some extra support, this is what I guide people through in Recovery Jumpstart, just to keep them from going to this crash cycle so they can continue moving upwards and continue making that traction in their recovery. If you needed help, make sure to apply to Recovery Jumpstart. The link is down in the description below. We do an application call. I want to make sure that you're the right fit for the program because we don't just accept anybody. If this helped, this is just really scratching the surface of what we cover in Recovery Jumpstart. So like I said, make sure you like the video, subscribe, and remember, you are just one mind shift away from living a life with thriving health. I'll see you in the next video.